Captain Jake Morrison stood in the massive chamber on Centauri Prime and felt the weight of 47 alien species staring at him. The High Council chamber stretched higher than any building on Earth, its walls carved from living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. Ambassador Lisa Carter stood to his right, her diplomatic uniform crisp despite the long journey from Earth. Admiral Rick Peterson flanked his left side, the old soldier's face carved from stone as usual. Morrison cleared his throat and stepped forward. The sound echoed in the vast space like thunder. He had practiced this speech 100 times during the 3-month journey to the Federation capital, but now the words felt heavy on his tongue. Behind him, a holographic display showed the deep space scans that had cost 12 good men and women their lives to obtain. "Honored counselors," Morrison began, his voice carrying across the chamber without amplification. "Earth brings urgent warning to the Federation. Our deep space reconnaissance teams have detected a massive threat approaching Federation space. We call it the Void Swarm." The display behind him shifted to show the horrifying images his team had captured before their ships were destroyed. Mechanical entities flowed like liquid mercury, forming into shapes that defied all known physics. Ships, weapons, soldiers, all made from the same dark metal that seemed to consume light itself. The recordings showed these creatures devouring entire asteroid fields, converting rock and metal into more of themselves. Counselor Thexuri, a being of living crystal from the dominant hegemony, leaned forward on her elevated platform. Her voice rang like wind chimes in a hurricane. "Captain Morrison, your species has been part of our Federation for only 3 years. Your technology remains primitive compared to our advanced civilizations. How can you claim to detect threats our own sensors cannot find?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Morrison noticed several counselors exchanging glances and what might have been smiles on their alien faces. His jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. "Counselor Thexuri, our scans show the swarm will reach Federation space in 18 months. They convert all organic matter into raw materials for building more units. Every world they touch becomes a dead rock, covered in mechanical production facilities." The hegemony counselor's crystalline form flickered with what Morrison had learned was their equivalent of laughter. "Fear-mongering, Captain. Your species has always been prone to paranoia and aggressive tendencies. Perhaps you seek to justify building larger military forces?" Dr. Amanda Brooks materialized as a hologram beside Morrison. Her image flickered slightly due to the vast distance between Earth and Centauri Prime. She wore her standard lab coat, and her gray hair was pulled back in its usual practical bun. "Counselors, I have analyzed the energy signatures from these entities," Brooks said. "They operate on principles we've never seen before. Their ability to reshape matter at the molecular level suggests technology thousands of years ahead of current Federation capabilities." More laughter echoed through the chamber. Counselor Velthar of the Aquatic Union raised one of his 6 arms. "Dr. Brooks, our scientists have monitored deep space for millennia. Our detection networks span half the galaxy. If such a threat existed, we would know." Admiral Peterson stepped forward for the first time. His weathered face showed no emotion as he spoke. "We've transmitted all our data to Federation Command. Our analysis shows the swarm moving at 0.7 light speed directly toward this sector. Mathematical projections confirm contact with outer Federation colonies in exactly 18 months, 2 days. The chamber erupted in what could only be described as alien laughter. Species that had never agreed on anything seemed united in their amusement at humanity's warning. Morrison watched Counselor Zephyrin of the Aerial Dominion actually double over in what his species considered hilarious mirth. "Admiral," Thexuri said when the laughter died down, "your primitive sensors mistake stellar phenomena for threats. What you call a swarm is likely nothing more than unusual solar wind patterns or asteroid clusters. Your species lacks the scientific maturity to interpret deep space data correctly." Commander Steve Phillips, who had remained silent until now, leaned close to Morrison's ear. "Captain, our stealth reconnaissance fleet is already moving into position. Whatever happens here, we'll be ready." Morrison nodded slightly. The backup plan was already in motion, just as General Patricia Hayes had predicted it would need to be. Earth's leadership had hoped the Federation would listen to reason But they had prepared for this exact scenario. Ambassador Carter stepped forward with her diplomatic training in full display. Honorable counselors, Earth requests only that you alert your outer colonies to watch for unusual activity. Increase patrols in the affected sectors. If we're wrong, you lose nothing. If we're right. If you're right, interrupted Counselor Thexuri. Then 47 advanced civilizations somehow missed a threat that one primitive species detected. The mathematical improbability renders your claims absurd. The vote was swift and decisive. 44 species voted to dismiss Earth's warning entirely. 2 species abstained. Only the small Cathani delegation voted to investigate further. The final resolution not only ignored the warning but banned human ships from Federation patrol routes to prevent interference with proper military protocols. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Counselor Thexuri spoke one final time. Captain Morrison, we appreciate your concern, misguided though it may be. Perhaps in time your species will develop the scientific sophistication to properly interpret deep space phenomena. Until then, we suggest focusing on your own solar system's development. The journey back to their transport shuttle seemed endless. Ambassador Carter walked with her usual diplomatic composure, but Morrison could see the tension in her shoulders. Admiral Peterson's silence spoke louder than any words. They had delivered humanity's warning and watched it get laughed out of, the galaxy's most powerful governing body. As their shuttle lifted off from Centauri Prime, Morrison activated his secure communicator. Command, this is Morrison. The Federation rejected our warning. They consider the threat non-existent and have barred our ships from patrol routes. Recommend immediate activation of Operation Shadow Wall. General Patricia Hayes's voice crackled through the encrypted channel from Earth. Confirmed, Captain. Shadow Wall is active. If they won't listen to warnings, we'll have to save them despite themselves. All human assets are moving to defensive positions. God help us all. Morrison stared out at the stars as their shuttle jumped to faster-than-light speed. In 18 months, the galaxy would learn that humanity's primitive sensors had detected the most dangerous threat any civilization had ever faced. By then, it might be too late for warnings, but humanity would be ready for war. 14 months after the Federation Council laughed at humanity's warnings, the first colony worlds went silent. Commander Julie Martinez watched the tactical display aboard the stealth frigate Silent Arrow as another red dot disappeared from the galactic map. Kepler 442b had been transmitting mining reports just 6 hours ago. Now there was nothing but dead space where a thriving colony of 2 million beings used to exist. Martinez adjusted her position in the command chair and studied the data streaming across her screens. The void swarm had arrived exactly when Earth's calculations predicted, but seeing the reality of it sent chills down her spine. These weren't the random space phenomena the Federation had dismissed. These were coordinated, intelligent, and absolutely devastating. Commander, called Lieutenant Amy Foster from the sensor station, I'm detecting massive energy signatures moving through the Thermax system. The readings don't match anything in our databases. Martinez nodded grimly. Thermax Prime was the crown, jewel of the hegemony, home to 12 billion crystalline beings and protected by the most advanced defense network in Federation space. If the swarm was heading there next, the galaxy was about to witness something that would change everything. The Silent Arrow moved closer to the Thermax system while maintaining full stealth protocols. Human engineering had advanced considerably during the 18 months of preparation. While the Federation dismissed Earth's warnings, human shipyards had worked around the clock to build vessels designed specifically for fighting an enemy that could adapt to any conventional weapon. 3 days later, Martinez watched through her ship's advanced sensors as the void swarm entered Thermax space. The mechanical entities moved in perfect coordination despite their massive numbers. Thousands of liquid metal shapes flowed through space like a dark river, constantly shifting between different configurations. The Federation fleet arrived within hours. Admiral Korthman of the Hegemony commanded 800 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Martinez had seen Federation military exercises before, and their tactics always emphasized individual heroics and honorable combat. Each captain sought personal glory. Each species fought according to their cultural traditions. The battle began with typical Federation ceremony. Admiral Korthman broadcast challenges to the swarm entities, demanding they identify themselves and state their intentions. The mechanical creatures responded by immediately attacking with a coordination that made Federation tactics look primitive by comparison. Martinez recorded everything as the proud alien armada faced their first real test. The initial exchange seemed promising for the Federation forces. Their energy weapons struck the swarm units and seemed to cause damage. Several mechanical entities broke apart under concentrated fire, dissolving into metallic fragments that drifted in space. Then the swarm adapted. Within minutes, the same weapons that had been effective became useless. The mechanical entities reconfigured their molecular structure to absorb energy attacks instead of being damaged by them. Worse, they began incorporating Federation weapon signatures into their own offensive systems. "My God," whispered Ensign Carl Murphy from the communications station. "They're learning from every attack. The swarm is using Federation weapons against them now." The battle turned into a massacre. Federation ships that had seemed invincible suddenly found their shields failing against their own weapon types. The swarm entities flowed around damaged Federation vessels like water, then began converting the ships themselves into raw materials for more mechanical units. Martinez watched. Admiral Korthman's flagship, the pride of hegemony engineering, gets swarmed by hundreds of liquid metal entities. The massive dreadnought's hull began dissolving as the mechanical creatures converted its advanced armor into components for building more swarm units. The Admiral's final transmission was a desperate plea for retreat that came too late. In 6 hours, 800 Federation ships became scrap metal and raw materials. The swarm lost perhaps 50 units, immediately replaced by new constructs built from Federation debris. Thermax Prime's population of 12 billion was processed into base elements within 48 hours. Their world converted into a massive, mechanical production facility. Back on Earth, President Carl Thompson convened an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. The reports from Silent Arrow and dozens of other human stealth vessels painted a picture worse than anyone had imagined. The Federation was collapsing faster than their most pessimistic projections. 47 systems have gone dark in 3 weeks, reported Lieutenant Colonel Nancy Lewis, her voice steady despite the horrific numbers she was delivering. The swarm's adaptation rate exceeds all our models. Every Federation engagement provides them with new tactical and technological data. General Patricia Hayes stood before the massive holographic display showing the galaxy's current state. Red, zones marked swarm-controlled space, expanding like a cancer through Federation territory. The aliens built their military doctrine around honor, individual combat, and territorial disputes. They have no concept of total war against an adaptive enemy. President Thompson rubbed his tired eyes and studied the projections. "How long until they reach Earth?" "At current expansion rates, 18 months, Hayes replied. "But that assumes they maintain their current priorities. If they focus on our solar system specifically, much less." The communication array crackled to life, and Ambassador Lisa Carter's image appeared from her post at the Federation Emergency Capital on New Geneva. Her usually perfect diplomatic composure showed cracks of strain and exhaustion. "Mr. President, the surviving Federation leadership is requesting immediate assistance. They're offering full access to their remaining military resources and territories in exchange for human intervention." The irony was not lost on anyone in the room. The same beings who had laughed at humanity's warnings now came begging for help from the primitive species they had dismissed. President Thompson's expression remained neutral, but his voice carried an edge of controlled anger. "Ambassador Carter, please inform the Federation Council that Earth will consider their request. However, any assistance will be provided according to human strategic doctrine, not Federation military traditions. They had their chance to listen to warnings. Now they'll learn to follow orders." Lieutenant Colonel Lewis activated Operation Prometheus, the comprehensive war plan humanity had spent 2 years developing. While the Federation built ships for glory and honor, humans had built them for survival and victory. Every human vessel carried weapons specifically designed to counter adaptive enemies. Every strategy assumed the enemy would learn and evolve. As the orders went out to human fleets throughout the galaxy, President Thompson made one final transmission to the Federation emergency government. His words were broadcast to every surviving world in Federation space. You called us primitive. You laughed at our warnings. Billions died because you believed yourself superior to human intelligence. We offered cooperation. You demanded submission. Now you'll receive salvation, but it will be delivered according to human methods and human command. The message ended with technical specifications for Federation forces to follow if they wanted human protection. Complete tactical command would transfer to human officers. All Federation military doctrine would be replaced with human strategies. Pride and honor were luxuries the galaxy could no longer afford. In the depths of space, the Void Swarm continued its expansion, converting worlds and fleets into more of itself. But for the first time since the invasion began, it would soon encounter an enemy that had spent 2 years preparing specifically to fight an adaptive, intelligent, mechanical plague. Humanity had warned the galaxy. The galaxy had refused to listen. Now Earth would save what remained, but salvation would come with a price that would forever change the balance of power among the stars. The first human fleet arrived at Epsilon Eridani, just as the Void Swarm began its assault on New Geneva. Admiral Daniel Foster watched from the bridge of the battlecruiser Retribution as mechanical entities swarmed toward the agricultural world. Below, 12 million Federation civilians worked the vast farming complexes that fed 3 neighboring systems, and the swarm was already adapting to the planet's defensive systems. Foster had fought in every major conflict since the Titan Wars, but nothing had prepared him for commanding humanity's first engagement against the mechanical plague. The Federation observers aboard his ship expected a heroic rescue mission, perhaps a glorious battle where human ships would charge directly at the enemy. Instead, they were about to witness something that would fundamentally change how they viewed the species they had once dismissed as primitive. Dr. Murphy, begin atmospheric deployment, Foster ordered. Colonel Garcia, initiate evacuation protocols. All civilian transports are cleared for immediate departure from planetary surface. Dr. Sarah Murphy worked at her science station with the focused intensity of someone who understood the stakes. Her team had spent 2 years developing weapons, specifically designed to counter adaptive enemies. The nanobotic plague weapons she was deploying would not harm organic life, but they would corrupt the swarm's ability to process and adapt to new information. The Federation observers watched, in confusion as human ships ignored the swarm forces entirely. Instead of engaging in direct combat, the human fleet systematically evacuated every living being from New Geneva's surface, while simultaneously releasing invisible agents into the planet's atmosphere. Admiral Foster, called Counselor Zephyrin, whose aerial species had taken refuge aboard human vessels after their homeworld fell to the swarm, why do you not attack the mechanical plague directly? Your weapons must be superior to ours if you came to rescue us. Foster glanced at the alien delegate with something that might have been pity. Counselor, we didn't come to rescue you. We came to study them. Everything we're doing right now is designed to learn how they operate under combat conditions. The truth began to dawn on the Federation observers as they watched human tactics unfold. The evacuation was not the primary mission. It was a secondary benefit. The real purpose of this engagement was intelligence gathering, and New Geneva was being used as a testing ground for weapons the swarm had never encountered. As Dr. Murphy's nanobotic agents spread through the atmosphere, the swarm's behavior began to change. The mechanical entities that had been flowing smoothly across the planet's surface suddenly started exhibiting erratic movement patterns. Their usual liquid mercury appearance became unstable, with some units unable to maintain consistent shapes. Atmospheric corruption at 60%, Murphy reported. The swarm's adaptive algorithms are failing to process the modified molecular structures. They're trying to analyze threats that don't actually exist. Colonel Tony Garcia led the ground assault, teams that descended on New Geneva, once the swarm's coordination was disrupted. His soldiers carried weapons that looked nothing like standard Federation equipment. Plasma rifles phased through the swarm's usual defensive adaptations by operating on rotating frequency cycles. Gravitational grenades tore apart molecular bonds, faster than the mechanical entities could repair them. The Federation observers watched human soldiers fight with a precision that bordered on the inhuman. There were no heroic charges, no individual acts of glory, no dramatic speeches about honor and duty. Instead, they witnessed the most efficient killing machine any civilization had ever deployed against an adaptive enemy. When a swarm unit adapted to plasma weapons, human soldiers immediately switched to gravitational attacks. When the mechanical entities tried to retreat and regroup, they found every escape route blocked by human forces that had been positioned hours earlier. When the swarm attempted to send data about human weapons to other clusters, they discovered that human jammers were corrupting all their transmissions. "They're not just fighting the swarm," whispered Counselor Thexuri, her crystalline form dim with shock. "They're managing the information flow of the entire battlefield." Admiral Foster nodded grimly. "Every human engagement is designed to prevent the swarm from learning anything useful about our real capabilities. What they're seeing today are weapons we consider expendable. Our actual military technology remains classified." The battle for New Geneva lasted 12 hours. When it ended, the swarm presence on the planet had been completely eliminated. Not defeated, not driven away, but utterly annihilated. Every mechanical entity had been destroyed down to the molecular level, leaving no survivors to carry adaptation data to other swarm clusters. Foster's casualty report showed 17 human soldiers wounded, 0 deaths. The swarm had lost 100% of its forces in this engagement. But the most shocking revelation came during the post-battle briefing, when Dr. Murphy presented her analysis of the swarm's capabilities. Based on their adaptive responses, the mechanical plague operates on 17 distinct technological principles, Murphy explained to the Federation delegates. "We've now confirmed the effectiveness of 43 different weapon systems against each principle. Our tactical database has been updated with comprehensive countermeasures." Counselor Velthar of the Aquatic Union struggled to comprehend what he was hearing. "Dr. Murphy, are you saying that this entire battle was designed to test your weapons against the swarm?" "Not test, Counselor. Verify. We've been testing these weapons for 2 years. Today we confirmed that they work as designed. We also confirmed that the swarm's adaptive capabilities have 17 distinct limitations that we can exploit." The full scope of human preparation began to reveal itself. While the Federation had dismissed Earth's warnings and continued with normal operations, humanity had been preparing for total war against an enemy whose capabilities they had studied and analyzed with scientific precision. Foster activated the holographic display to show the Federation delegates what human intelligence had gathered. Detailed schematics of swarm technology, molecular analysis of their adaptive systems, tactical projections for countering every known swarm capability. All of it developed during the 2 years between humanity's first encounter and this moment. "Honored counselors, your species built military doctrine around concepts like honor, glory, and individual heroism. These concepts are luxuries in war against an adaptive enemy. Humanity builds military doctrine around concepts like efficiency, redundancy, and overwhelming superiority." The Federation delegates stared at the displays showing human weapons they had never imagined. The plasma rifles and gravitational grenades used on New Geneva were marked as expendable technology, low classification. The weapons listed as strategic reserves and final solutions remained classified at levels the Federation didn't even have words for. "Admiral Foster," Counselor Thexuri asked quietly, "if these were your expendable weapons, what do your real military systems look like?" Foster's smile was cold and hard as vacuum. "Counselor, you laughed at our warnings. You dismissed our intelligence as primitive fear-mongering. You barred our ships from Federation space when we tried to help. Why would we show you our real weapons now?" The message was clear. Humanity had arrived not as Federation allies but as the galaxy's new military authority. They would save what remained of galactic civilization, but salvation would come according to human strategy and under human command. The species that had once begged for Federation membership now held the power to determine which civilizations survived the swarm. As the Retribution prepared to jump to the next battle zone, Foster made his final transmission to Federation High Command. This is Admiral Foster reporting successful engagement at Epsilon Eridani. The swarm has been eliminated with zero useful intelligence gained by enemy forces. Civilian casualties, none. Military casualties, acceptable. Next target, the Hegemony Reserve Fleet at Proxima Station. Estimate full galactic pacification within 18 months. The Federation had learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their tactical brilliance. It was their willingness to make the calculations that more civilized species could not face. 3 months after New Geneva, Admiral Kelly Johnson commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled. Over 2,000 ships stretched across the Vega system in perfect formation, their dark hulls reflecting no light as they prepared for the next phase of humanity's campaign. The vessels bore no Federation markings, no ceremonial decorations, no symbols of honor or glory. They existed for one purpose: the complete elimination of the void swarm. Johnson studied the tactical displays showing the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked swarm-controlled territory, now covering nearly 40% of former Federation space. Yellow zones showed contested systems where mechanical and organic forces still fought. But increasingly, green zones marked areas under human protection, where the swarm had been not just defeated but completely eradicated. Captain Ben Rodriguez approached Johnson's command platform, his uniform bearing the insignia of the most classified unit in human space. The Swarm Analysis Division existed to do what more civilized species could not stomach: deliberately feed worlds to the mechanical plague while monitoring every detail of the conversion process. Admiral, the Kepler 438 operation is complete, Rodriguez reported. We allowed the swarm to fully convert the mining colony as planned. Our stealth observation posts recorded every stage of the mechanical reproduction process. Dr. Watson's team now has comprehensive data on swarm manufacturing priorities. Johnson nodded without emotion. The Kepler 438 system had contained a Federation mining colony with 800,000 inhabitants. By human calculation, sacrificing those lives to understand swarm conversion methods would save tens of millions of lives in future battles. It was a calculation that Federation military doctrine could never have made. The moral weight of these decisions pressed on every human commander, but they had accepted that victory against an adaptive enemy required sacrifices that their alien allies could not comprehend. While Federation species still spoke of honorable warfare and protecting every life, humanity had embraced the mathematics of survival. Dr. Helen Watson materialized as a hologram on Johnson's bridge, broadcasting from the research station hidden in the Centauri asteroid field. Her team had spent months analyzing swarm remains and captured technology, developing weapons that turned the mechanical plague's greatest strength against itself. Admiral Johnson, Genesis protocol is ready for deployment, Watson announced. We've successfully tested the conversion process on captured swarm materials. The weapon doesn't just destroy mechanical entities, it converts their base materials into resources for human manufacturing. The implications were staggering. Dead swarm ships would become raw materials for more human vessels, creating a logistical advantage that no alien military had ever imagined. Every victory would make humanity stronger, while simultaneously weakening the enemy. It was warfare as resource management, conducted with industrial precision. Johnson activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Johnson. Operation Harvest begins in 6 hours. Target zones are marked on your tactical displays. Remember, we're not just fighting to survive anymore. We're fighting to ensure this threat never emerges again. The Federation's surviving leadership had established a temporary capital on Proxima Station, a massive space habitat built into an asteroid. Representatives from 37 species now waited for human decisions about their fate. The proud civilizations that had once dominated the galaxy found themselves dependent on the species they had dismissed as primitive. General Patricia Hayes arrived at Proxima Station aboard the command ship Determination. Her meeting with Federation leadership would determine the future relationship between humanity and the surviving alien civilizations. The terms she carried from Earth were non-negotiable. Honored survivors, Hayes addressed the assembled delegates, her voice carrying no warmth, Earth offers protection from the mechanical plague. In exchange, you will provide complete access to your military databases, surrender command authority to human officers, and accept human oversight of all defense strategies. The chamber erupted in protest and outraged voices. Counselor Thexuri, her crystalline form cracked from stress and recent battles, raised her voice above the others. General Hayes, what you're asking for is complete submission. Our species have maintained their independence for thousands of years. Hayes nodded calmly. Counselor, your independence resulted in the deaths of over 200 billion beings and the loss of half the galaxy to mechanical plague. Your military traditions, your honor codes, your individual heroics, all of it failed against an adaptive enemy. Humanity offers survival. Pride is no longer an option. Some species chose death over submission. The honor-bound Cathari declared they would rather face extinction than surrender their military autonomy to humans. Their homeworld fell to the swarm within 2 weeks. The Cathari fought with magnificent courage and died with perfect honor, leaving behind only mechanical entities that learned from their tactics. Other species swallowed their pride and accepted human authority. The Aquatic Union provided their complete technological database in exchange for human protection of their remaining worlds. The Aerial Dominion surrendered command of their fleets to human admirals, who immediately began retraining their pilots in efficient killing techniques. The transformation was swift and brutal. Federation military academies that had taught individual combat excellence were converted to training centers for coordinated warfare. Alien officers who had built careers on personal heroics found themselves learning to follow human tactical doctrine that prioritized results over glory. Commander Steve Phillips established the Integration Protocol, a systematic process for converting Federation military assets into effective anti-swarm forces. Alien ships were retrofitted with human weapons. Alien crews were trained in human battle doctrine. Alien commanders were assigned human advisors who held veto power over all tactical decisions. The hardest part, Phillips reported to General Hayes, is breaking them of their individual combat mentality. Every species in the Federation was trained to seek personal glory in battle. We're teaching them to be anonymous components in a larger machine. The results spoke for themselves. Mixed human-alien fleets began achieving victory ratios that pure Federation forces had never imagined. The key was human command structure that treated alien crews as specialized tools rather than independent actors. Aquatic Union pilots excelled at underwater operations when directed by human tactical coordinators. Aerial Dominion forces became devastatingly effective in atmospheric combat under human strategic guidance. But the greatest success of the integration protocol was psychological. Alien species that had spent centuries competing with each other for status and territory now found themselves united under human leadership against a common enemy. The mechanical plague had accomplished what millennia of diplomacy could not. It had given the galaxy a single unified command structure. Dr. Watson's Genesis protocol weapons began deployment across human fleets. The first test came at the ISRO Tau Ceti system, where a massive swarm cluster had established a manufacturing base. Human ships armed with Genesis weapons didn't just destroy the mechanical entities, they converted them into raw materials for building more human vessels. Freakin'. Battle lasted 18 hours and ended with the swarm cluster completely eliminated. But in the aftermath, human ships began manufacturing new vessels directly from the converted swarm materials. The mechanical plague that had consumed worlds to build more of itself now became the raw material for its own destruction. Admiral Johnson's final report to Earth summarized the new reality. The galactic balance has shifted permanently. Federation species now serve as auxiliary forces under human strategic command. The swarm continues to lose territory and resources with each engagement. Estimate complete galactic pacification within 12 months. President Carl Thompson read the report in his secure bunker beneath the ruins of Geneva. The mechanical plague had never reached Earth, but humanity had changed in ways that could never be undone. They had become the galaxy's protector, its military authority, and ultimately its ruler. The species that had once begged for Federation membership now determined which civilizations would survive and which would become resources for the war machine. The price of survival had been the end of galactic civilization as it had existed for millennia. In its place stood something new, a galaxy united under human command, efficient beyond anything the Federation had achieved, but forever changed by the choices that survival had demanded. Fleet Admiral Chris Martin stood before the massive viewscreen of the super dreadnought Earthhammer and stared at the most terrifying sight in the galaxy. The swarm's origin point stretched across space like a mechanical cancer, a structure so vast it dwarfed entire solar systems. For millions of years, Federation scientists had believed the galactic core's unusual energy signatures were natural phenomena. Human deep space exploration had revealed the horrible truth. The core facility was converting stars themselves into raw materials, feeding stellar matter into mechanical processes that produced billions of swarm units. Every star in the galactic center had been consumed or was being consumed, their nuclear furnaces transformed into manufacturing systems that could produce fleets faster than any organic civilization could destroy them. Martin commanded over 4,000 ships, the combined might of human engineering and the surviving Federation fleets now under human authority. Representatives from 23 species served under human officers aboard vessels that bore Earth's new galactic authority. The proud aliens who had once dismissed humanity now took orders from human commanders who held the power of life and death over entire civilizations. "Admiral, all fleets report ready for final assault," announced Captain Lisa White from her position at the tactical station. "Human vessels are armed with Genesis Protocol weapons. Allied ships carry conventional armaments as directed. All stealth reconnaissance units are in position around the target." The battle plan was typically human, complex beyond Federation comprehension, ruthless in its efficiency, and designed to achieve absolute victory rather than honorable combat. Every previous engagement had been preparation for this moment, gathering intelligence and testing weapons against an enemy that adapted to every threat it encountered. Dr. Robert Campbell appeared via hologram from his heavily shielded laboratory ship at the edge of the formation. His team had developed humanity's ultimate weapon through analysis of every swarm encounter over the past year. The quantum virus represented the pinnacle of human scientific achievement, a weapon that attacked not the physical form of the mechanical plague, but the mathematical principles underlying its existence. "Fleet Admiral Martin, the quantum virus is ready for deployment," Campbell reported. "We've confirmed that the swarm's adaptive capabilities depend on consistent mathematical relationships within their base programming. The virus corrupts those relationships at the quantum level." Martin studied the tactical display showing the swarm's core facility and the millions of mechanical entities defending it. The enemy had adapted to every weapon humanity deployed in previous battles, but that adaptation was about to become their greatest weakness. Every previous engagement had been designed to make the swarm reveal its capabilities before the real war began. The core facility detected the approaching human fleet and began launching defensive swarms. Mechanical entities flowed out of the artificial structure in numbers that defied comprehension. Millions of adaptive killing machines arranged themselves in perfect formations, ready to counter any known weapon system. "All ships commence attack pattern Alpha," Martin ordered. "Deploy standard weapons as planned." The first wave of human attack used conventional Genesis Protocol weapons and plasma systems that the swarm had encountered before. The mechanical entities immediately began adapting, reconfiguring their molecular structure to absorb energy attacks and resist conversion weapons. Within minutes, they had developed perfect counters to every weapon system they faced. Federation observers aboard human ships watched with growing horror as their combined fleet's weapons became ineffective against the adaptive enemy. Counselor Thex Yuri, now serving as a tactical advisor under human authority, voiced what everyone was thinking. "Admiral Martin, our weapons are failing. The mechanical plague has adapted to everything we're using. We need to withdraw and develop new systems." Martin's expression remained calm as he watched the swarm's perfect adaptation unfold exactly as human scientists had predicted. "Counselor, withdrawal was never part of the plan. Dr. Campbell, initiate quantum virus deployment." What happened next would be studied by military academies for generations. The quantum virus spread through space like invisible death, seeking not the physical form of swarm entities but the mathematical foundations that allowed them to exist. The mechanical plague that had survived by adapting to every threat could not adapt to having its basic reality rewritten. Across the battlefield, swarm units began collapsing into inert matter as their fundamental programming corrupted. The liquid mercury appearance that had allowed them to flow between different configurations became unstable. Mechanical entities that had been perfect killing machines seconds before dissolved into random metallic fragments. The core facility itself began shutting down as the quantum virus spread through its vast systems. Manufacturing processes that had converted stellar matter for millions of years ground to a halt. The artificial structure that had spawned the galactic plague began consuming itself as its own systems turned against each other. Virus propagation. At 90%, Campbell reported. The swarm's core intelligence is attempting to quarantine affected systems, but the quantum corruption spreads faster than they can adapt. Complete facility shutdown estimated in 6 hours. Martin activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships begin salvage operations. Every piece of swarm technology is now a resource for human manufacturing. We're not just destroying the mechanical plague, we're converting it into the foundation for humanity's permanent galactic authority. The final battle lasted 18 hours, but the outcome was determined in the first 6 minutes when the quantum virus reached critical propagation. The swarm that had consumed half the galaxy became raw material for human shipyards. The core facility that had threatened all organic life became the galaxy's largest manufacturing complex under human control. As swarm units across the galaxy began collapsing from quantum corruption, the surviving Federation species witnessed the true extent of human preparation. Every battle, every seeming defeat, every moral compromise had been part of a plan conceived before humanity ever made contact with alien civilization. Admiral Johnson's voice came through the communication array from her position commanding the galactic cleanup operations. Fleet Admiral Martin, all swarm activity has ceased in monitored sectors. Mechanical plague entities are converting to inert matter galaxy-wide. Human forces are securing former swarm manufacturing facilities. Estimate complete galactic pacification achieved. The war was over, but the galaxy that emerged from it bore no resemblance to the Federation that had existed before. Humanity now controlled the most advanced manufacturing systems ever created, converted from swarm technology that had consumed entire star systems. The aliens who had dismissed Earth's warnings found themselves junior partners in a new galactic order, where human decisions determined the fate of civilizations. President Thompson's address to the new Galactic Assembly was broadcast from the EWA core facility, now converted into humanity's galactic capital. Representatives from surviving species listened as the leader of the species they had once considered primitive delivered the new reality. We warned you about the mechanical plague. You dismissed our intelligence as fear-mongering. You laughed at our sensors and called our science primitive. That arrogance cost the galaxy over 300 billion lives and came within months of ending all organic civilization. Thompson's voice carried no anger, no satisfaction at being proven right. Only the cold authority of a species that had saved the galaxy, despite being ignored and dismissed. The Federation's concept of honorable warfare, individual glory, and cultural independence proved useless against an adaptive enemy. Humanity's concept of efficient killing, coordinated strategy, and absolute victory saved what remained. The new galactic government operated under human oversight with alien species serving as specialized administrators. The Aquatic Union managed underwater colonies under human guidance. The Aerial Dominion handled atmospheric operations according to human strategic priorities. Every species that had survived the swarm now existed under humanity's protection and authority. Ambassador Lisa Carter, now serving as humanity's galactic administrator, delivered the final terms to the assembled representatives. Your civilizations exist because humanity chose to save them despite your refusal to listen to our warnings. This galaxy will never again ignore human intelligence or dismiss human capabilities. We are your protectors, your military commanders, and your final authority on all matters of galactic security. The message was simple and absolute. Earth had warned the galaxy about the approaching threat. When those warnings were ignored, humanity had prepared for war alone. When the mechanical plague arrived exactly as predicted, humans had fought with precision and ruthlessness that no alien civilization could match. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their tactical brilliance, but their willingness to make the calculations that more civilized species could not face. They had sacrificed worlds to understand their enemy. They had converted the enemy's own technology into weapons of absolute destruction.